Thought for the day: you have brains in your head, you have feet in your shoes. You can steer yourself any direction you choose. From Dr. Seuss. A lot of choices coming up in your lives. Some of the choices are pretty easy, Taco Bell or Taco John's for lunch. But some of the choices you make are going to have much greater impact on your lives. When it comes to driving and your safety, are you going to choose to wear your seatbelt every time you get in a car? That's wearing a seatbelt's not about being cool. It's about if you're alive or dead if you're in a crash. Are you ever going to try to drive after drinking alcohol or taking drugs? Are you going to drink alcohol or take drugs in the first place? So hopefully you make good, educated choices, wise choices for yourselves moving forward. Okay, so I've taken most of these pictures around Oshkosh in the last 20 years or so, and it's a good review for signs and road markings and some traffic situations that we're going to introduce here. We're here in the parking lot at North High School during spring break a few years ago, going out for a lesson. Real quick funny story. I could tell you stories for days and days about strange things that have happened out with student drivers. But about 15 minutes after I took this picture, something unusual happened. We were driving down Sawyer Street, and the boy who was driving was a good student, A student, good driver. He's fine. But we get to the corner of Sawyer and Witzel, where I told him to turn left. That's right where the new Taco John's is. I'll show you a picture where the old one was in a few slides here. But we get to the intersection, and all of a sudden there is a couch, a big 3-section couch, is sitting in the middle of the intersection of Sawyer and Witzel. Now, we had room to go around it, but that, you just don't expect to see random furniture popping up in the street like that. So you always have to drive defensively, and that's one of our key concepts we talk about is driving defensively. Oh, poor Lieutenant Drebin, right? You want to drive smoothly, make it a smooth ride for your passengers. Okay, so equilateral triangle, red and white, yield sign. How slow do we have to go at a yield sign? Well, it really depends on how well you can see cross traffic, right? The cross street, that's normally the traffic you have to yield to at a yield sign. So slow enough, 10 miles per hour is pretty typical, but sometimes you may have to go slower to see better. Sometimes you can see better, and 15 is okay. Now, stop signs. This is a four-way or all-way stop. You can tell by the little rectangle on the bottom there. Who has the right-of-way at a four-way stop? Well, there are two levels of priority. Whoever gets there first has first priority. Otherwise, it will be, if you get there at the same time, approximately, you would yield to traffic on your right. So we would yield to a car over on our right over here. Diamond lanes are reserved. We saw this in the video the other day. This one's reserved for a bicycle lane. This is a one-way street, so the bicycle lane is on the left in this case. If we needed to move into that lane to make a turn, again, half a block or less, if it's clear, we can move in and cut across the lane to make our turn. Now, a few years ago, this is on High Avenue, and now we went up a little further, up by Wisconsin Street, and you see that they moved the bike lane over to the right a bit, and instead of the diamond symbol, they put the actual bicycle symbol there. And but they have the right turn lane where the white van is to the right of that. So that white van would have moved in there about a half a block or less. And you can see farther back, it's actually a parking lane instead of a right turn lane back by Axletech there. Down on Main Street, right? We talked about no turn on red in some locations. Here we have a no turn on red sign. And the reason is if you're in that car there and you look to your left, you can't see very far. A lot of these old buildings in old downtown areas, like this one here, were built very close to the corners, and you just can't see more than half a block down the side street there. Right? So that's why you get that no turn on red. Now we're going to flip around to the other side. Here we are heading north on Main Street, and we can see here, yep, there's the old First National Bank building, that big building in the sunlight there that was blocking your view. And of course, coming from the other way, we have orange construction. Speed limits on the yellow signs are advisory. They are recommending that you slow down to that speed before you enter that curve. Here we have a picture of the chevron alignment signs, the arrows. And one day, many years ago, I went out and took a bunch of pictures on a cold January day and had a lot of snow in these pictures, which is kind of depressing. So I've gotten rid of most of those with newer pictures in recent years. However, this picture here is a really good example of IPDE defensive driving. The main hazard we identify here is an oncoming car in the curve. And you always want to predict what's the worst thing that might happen. Now, it looks like the plows have cleared the streets out pretty well, but sometimes you get little patches of ice in the wintertime when it's frozen like this. And if that car were to hit an icy patch and slide, he would skid directly into us. He's on the inside of the curve. We would skid straight towards the snowbank there, okay? But we have a potential point of conflict if this car skids into our lane. So what do we decide to do? Well, adjusting speed, usually slowing down, is our best option. We could possibly swerve too. But we do what's called covering the brake. This is a perfect example of where you want to cover the brake. You do this every day when you're driving. It's where you take your foot off the gas pedal and just hold it over the brake. Cover the brake. You don't touch the brake. That would be pretty awkward if you touched the brake every time you had a potential hazard approaching you. You'd be stopping and starting like crazy, right? So it's much more smoother to cover the brake just for a second or two usually, and then you can resume on the accelerator, okay? But again, the sharper the angle on the turn, the slower you need to go. And some people, oh yeah, there you go, ridiculous and ludicrous speeds, okay? Just because you have four-wheel drive doesn't mean that you're going to stop any easier. It helps you go, but it doesn't help you stop, okay? Look at this. This is just from last fall. I got this picture from one of the traffic cams, and the bridges and overpasses will freeze first because you have the cold air going underneath as well as freezing down from the top. So you can see the main part of the road was damp but not frozen, but there the cold air went underneath and there's ice on the bridge there. On a dead end, okay, a nice parking job, by the way. About a foot from the curb, wheels are straight, cars parallel with the curb. To get out of this dead end, we would do a maneuver called a Y-turn, where you go forward in one direction and backward in the opposite direction. You're going to have to do one of those on your road test, and we're going to practice those a lot when you take behind the wheel. And this would be a good example of a place where you might use a Y-turn to get out of a dead end. You would not want to back out into a busy street or highway. Okay, speed hump over by the Paint Arts Center here. Slow down to 15. If you can see in the reflection, the glare of the sun there, it says 15. Right, do not enter. It's a one-way street. This is a square sign, but if you can recognize the shape of this symbol with the red circle with the white bar through the middle, even if it did not have the letters of do not enter on there, hope you can still recognize that shape. Okay, anticipate your lane use, right? 1, 2, 3, 4 lanes here. The right lane, you can turn right on red. Over in this lane, we actually have 3 signs in this picture that say you cannot turn right on red from that lane. Here's where a one-way street turns into a two-way street. Here we have the two-way traffic warning sign. We also have left turn only lane. A white lane line separates one-way traffic. This is the corner of Sepie and Bowen, and then there beyond, it's a 4-way stop. It's a 2-way street the rest of the way to the lake. Interchangeable messages. This is not from around Oshkosh. Okay, one big rule is we always need to stop behind the crosswalk. So here we are on Smith Avenue, right by North High School, and we stop behind the crosswalk, and we look to our right, and there is a large tree blocking our view. We can only see about half a block down to the right here. Now, a few years ago, the people who lived there, they trimmed up the branches and you can see a lot better now. But what do you do in this case? You don't just punch it and hope nobody's coming. Here's what you do. After you make that initial stop, then you nudge forward and stop again, or at least slow down to see better. And you can see that now, about a block away, we see There's a van right there. Okay, now do we have enough room to pull out in front of that guy? It depends how fast he's going. If he's going the speed limit 25, yeah, we got plenty of room to pull out in front. But if he's going a little faster, 35 or 40, yeah, we probably should wait for him then. That's one of our main rules for right-of-way is never make a driver with the right-of-way slow down. It's common courtesy, but it's also safety. Here we have speed limit going over the bridge, plus a no parking sign. Here we have a police car. One of their favorite spots to look for is on Algoma. Now, here we are by the auditorium at West High School, on Taft Avenue at the corner of Eagle Street by the water park. And you notice that there are these three white lines, the crosswalk and then the thick white stop line. You can see it better over here on Eagle Street. But how do you know when the front of your car is at that first white line? Here's a little reference point that you can use. It works in almost every vehicle. And you can see that if you use the bottom edge of your side mirror like this, just extend that imaginary line onto the ground, that's right about where the front of your car is. So right about line that bottom edge up on the front of the white line. Now, most of these crosswalks are at intersections, but sometimes we have them in the middle of a block. Here we are down on UWO campus, and if there was a person standing here, we would have to stop, yield the right-of-way until they crossed the street. Here we have some in the middle of Main Street. Here you can see the old version up on the sign up above. Okay, if there was a person standing here on that curb, the red car and the van oncoming would have to stop and yield to that person crossing the street. I like this picture also because it shows parallel parking. If we were going to move into this open parking stall here on Main Street, we would back into it. If this red BMW here was going to back into it, they would line up about 3 feet from the silver car, and they would back in by steering right, straight, and then swinging left to get into that parking space. That's the maneuver we call parallel parking, and we will definitely practice that when you take behind the wheel also. Now, a few years ago, we reconstructed Main Street. It looks like this. Here's the new version of the pedestrian sign. It's the plain sign with the arrow. It means the same thing. Had some cold winters recently. Didn't see any penguins by my house, but look out, yeah, okay. Look at that, okay. I've had to do this. I've had to wait for a large cow in the road before on an old dirt road in a national park, one-lane road. You're just going to have to wait till they get out of the way. Now, if you've seen around town, most of the don't walk signs have the countdown on them, which is nice for the pedestrians, but it's also a countdown to the yellow light at most of these. Okay, blind pedestrians, you can identify them two ways. They have the white cane with the red stripe around the tip, or they might have a service animal, a seeing eye dog we used to call them. Got to step 10 feet away for a blind pedestrian. They have the right of way wherever they go. Okay, here we are on Jackson Street. This is the old Taco John's building here. That's where the Quick Trip is now. I'll show you the new picture in a moment. But we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 lanes. This lane in the middle is a shared left turn lane. It's for turning left from both directions, in this case, both northbound and southbound traffic. And this maroon van, they're doing it the exact correct way. They have moved into the turn lane to wait because they have to yield when they're turning left. They have to yield to oncoming traffic. They have to yield to that guy and everybody behind them. So what that does is it gets them out of our lane of traffic, and we won't have to slow down or change lanes for them. You only want to move into a turn lane that's shared like this, half a block or less before the turn. Another thing you can see in this picture is the alignment of our lane position. Look how the corner of the hood lines up right with the yellow line there and the white line on that side. Okay, here we reconstructed it, and there's the Quick Trip, and then we put the medians in there. This is what it looks like now on Jackson Street. Okay, we're going to end the first part of this review now, and we will pick up with part 2 on the next video.